Good afternoon, champions. So, I would like to officially welcome you to today's session. Hoping that your weekend was good, and I hope that you are able to make some recaps and also update on your strategies and the analysis. So, it's a new week. I would like to officially welcome you to this week, and hoping that this week is going to be a good week for us to make some profits out of the market. So today I'll be analyzing the Euro USD. Then I'm going to analyze one index that is US 30, and then we are going to finish up our analysis with the Euro NZD. So let me start with the Euro USD. Now looking at Euro USD, let me start from a higher time frame, and then you're going to move into lower time frame. Let me start from the weekly time frame. Now, looking at the market from the weekly perspective, this is what I'm seeing. So you can see that the market, okay, when you go to the monthly time frame, it is a downward trend, but then inside that downward trend, that is where we are having this kind of an upward movement. And then we see that we had a touch to these particular areas, a move to this particular point, then we had a retrace to this particular point of trend line, then we have the markets moving, creating a breakout. And as we always know that whenever the market creates a breakout, they must always come back for a retest. So they went up, but then came back for a retest to this particular point. So this point previously acted as a point of resistance. That is what we learned from this. So you can see that here it acted as a point of resistance. We also see here it acted as a point of resistance. So at this particular area, it acted as a point of resistance. Now learning from this previous movement, now you understand that this time round, since it has already created a breakout, we already have a closed candlestick above it. That is how you are able to detect a breakout to the upside. Then you can see that it came down to have a retest to this particular point of which acted as a previous point of resistance. Now it is acting as a point of support. Automatically, you know that it is going to be this time around not just a point of support, but rather a very strong point of support. That's why you can see that when it came, it made a touch to this particular point of support this time round, and we had a breakout out of these areas here to this particular point of resistance. We had some retest to this particular point of support. Okay, this retest is only because when this breakout happened in these particular areas here, you see there was no retest. That's why you can see that it had to find a particular point of resistance before coming down to this particular point of support here to have a retest. And then we experience just a small consolidation, then the market, a creation of, again you can see this pattern. This is a creation of a W pattern. So whenever you see a W pattern, it is kind of giving you a sign that it is ready to move toward the upside. So you can see that here we had a move to the upside, move to the downside, a move to the upside, a move to the downside. So a move to the upside could actually complete the W pattern that you're seeing here, which was kind of a sign that the markets were ready now to move toward the upside. Came to this particular point of resistance, we had moves to the downside, move to the upside, then a creation of another pattern which I call the M pattern or the double triangle pattern. So you can see that when it created itself here, this was a clear sign that the market will move to this particular point of support. So you can see this is a very strong point of support, and you can see that we had a breakout here. So you can see that the market came to this particular point of trend line, moved to the upside, then we had a clear breakout. So what was I expecting? I was expecting the market would rise to these levels here, to this particular, to have a retest to this particular point of trend line before further moving toward the downside. So that's why you can see that currently placing this short position, but what I'm currently expecting is that the market are going to rise to have a retrace to this particular point of trend line before the market actually moves towards the downside. So hoping that was helpful. Now let us move to the daily time frame. Now looking at the market from the daily perspective, that is what I was actually explaining from the weekly time frame. So but in the daily time frame, we can see clear patterns. So you can see this move to the upside to this particular point of point of resistance, then we had a move to the downside. So when it comes to the daily time frame, the only thing or the most important thing that you need to note down is that the market are respecting trend lines. That is what the market are respecting. Point of resistance are also important. You can see here the market came to this particular point of resistance, which actually gave a clear sign that the markets were ready to move toward the downside. Then you can see that it came to this particular point, had a retrace to this particular point of trend line. You can see that this is a very clear trend line. And that's why I was saying that whenever markets create a breakout, they must always retrace to a particular trend line before further moving to the downside. And you can see this, that is what the market have done. So it created a breakout, retest to this particular trend line before further moving toward the downside. And you can see that yes, they have created a breakout in from this particular trend line, but then they are still respecting this particular trend line here. So you can see that the market are still respecting this particular trend line, and you can see that we have a new point of resistance, a move to the downside, a move to the upside. Now you can see that here, you can see after touching this particular trend line, you can see it was a clear sign that the markets were ready to move toward the upside. And this time round, I was expecting the markets were going to rise to these levels before further moving toward the downside. So I hope that was also helpful. Now let us move on now to the 4 hour time frame. Now looking at the market from the 4 hour time frame, there are specific patterns that I would like you to see when it comes to the hourly time frame. And you can see that we usually have got an upward trend before a sudden breakout to the downside. You can see that this is an upward trend in this area before having a sudden move to the downside. You can see this is also an upward trend before markets move to the downside. And here you can see again an upward trend and then the market move toward the downside. So out of that, what I'm currently expecting the markets to do, so what I'm expecting that the market are going to do is that I'm expecting a breakout toward the downside. The only thing that is left, it is to know the specific point where the markets are going to create that breakout to the downside. So you can see that the market, I think from last week, the market have been creating this good patterns which are very predictable. So you can see a move to the upside, touching that trend line, a move to the downside, a move to the upside, a move to the downside, move to the upside, and then we had a breakout to the downside, but then we had another move to the upside. So what I'm currently expecting is, since the market have touched this particular trend line here, which is also a point of a very strong point of support because it previously acted as a point of resistance. So what I'm currently expecting is that the markets are going to move toward the upside to these particular levels before creating a very strong move to the downside. So that is what I'm expecting that the markets are going to do. And then now looking at the market from from the 1 hour time frame, you can see now we are headed to the New York session. I don't know what the New York session is going to bring, but hopefully, since we are around 1 hour, I think 30 minutes away from the opening of the New York session. So what I'm currently expecting is that the market are going to rise high up to these levels, so that when the New York session opens, the market may be ready to move toward the downside. I think it may come to this particular point of support here. So I'm expecting that the market will have touched these particular areas before the New York session opens, so that when the New York session open and we have got kind of London New York session, then the markets are going to move toward the downside because that is what has been always been clearly shown. Because looking at the previous markets, like looking at this particular area, you can see that when the New York session opened, the market moved toward the downside. You can see here when the New York session opened, you can see that the market continue moving toward the downside. Also in this level, you can see when the New York session opened at this particular area, the market moved toward the downside. So I'm going to prepare a video in which I'll be explaining how you can trade the Tokyo session, the London session, and also the New York session. So we are still waiting for the New York session to open. So that is all that I had for the Euro USD. So I'd like us to move now to the the US 30. Now looking at US 30, what am I expecting out of the US 30? Now for the US 30, moving to the daily time frame, okay, this is kind of an obvious pattern. So you can see a move, okay. So you can see that from this point, a move to the upside, move to the downside, move to the upside. You can see that it touched this particular trend line, move to the upside, then respecting this particular point of support, a move to the upside, downside, upside, downside, consolidation in these areas, and then W formation, move to the downside. So this is where I'm currently expecting from the daily time frame. This is where I'm expecting that the market should rise to. That is from the daily time frame. Now, moving a little bit lower to a lower time frame, and then looking at the market from the 1 hour time frame. mm, mm, yeah. So looking at the market from the 4 hour time frame, so you can see that we had we have got this very strong point of support below here. I know you're able to see this, a very strong point of support. You can see that the market made a move to the upside, a move to the downside. This is kind of a retrace that is usually made, and then you have a clear move. So these are usually kind of patterns that are usually created in US 30. You should always look out for those patterns. You can see when it came down to this level, the market rose to these levels. Then you can see that there's a creation of W shape. So this is a complete W. So you can see the complete W in here. A W shape, a confirmation that the markets were ready to move towards the upside. Then we had a move to the downside to this particular area. But then you can see that there is a now when the market came to this level, you can see that there was a clear pattern, an upward pattern that was being respected. So you can see that the market in this level were respecting that particular trend line that was above, and also this particular trend line that is below. So you can see that it is just a kind of a pullback, and then we had when the market pulled back to these levels, which is also a very strong point of support. Bearing in mind, you can see in these levels here, and also in these levels here. So the markets at the end of the day will move toward the upside. So you can see that the market came to this, also returned to this particular point, respecting these two particular trend line, and then we had a clear move to the upside. You can see that you have got now a downward movement, even though the market have not touched this particular trend line that is above here. What I'm expecting is that you can see that you have got three complete red candlestick, a move to the downside. That can be a very a strong confirmation that the markets are ready to move toward the downside to touch this particular trend line that is below here. So the trend line may happen in these areas, and also the trend line. The market may move down to this particular trend line in these levels, or it may also move to this particular trend line that are in this level. So, but either ways, you can see that I've placed in a short position, but then this is a sell stop. So I'm waiting for the market to clearly show me that they are moving toward the downside, and that will be so if the markets are going to hit these levels here that are here, so that they can move toward the downside together with the market. So now moving into the 1 hour time frame. So now in the 1 hour time frame, I'm waiting for the New York session, because I know when the New York session is going to open, we are going to have a crazy move toward the downside. And I'm hoping that this crazy move toward the downside, you can see that in these areas here, when the New York session opened, we had a crazy move to the downside up to levels of the Tokyo session. And what I'm hoping is that the same thing is going to happen. So I'm expecting that when the New York session open, the markets are going to move toward the downside. So I think that is okay. Let me finish up with the Euro NZD. Now looking at the Euro NZD, okay, I think I have to do a lot of explanation when it comes to trading the Euro NZD. So you can see Euro NZD usually create very fantastic patterns, but then when it comes to breaking those patterns, this pair is usually aggressive while breaking the patterns. So I'm going to move to the daily time frame so that you can be able to understand what is currently happening. And now looking at the market from the daily time frame, you can see that we are at a kind of some sort of consolidation. So you can see that the markets are consolidating between these areas that are here. So the markets are consolidating between these areas. So, and since market are consolidating between those areas, what this pair usually tend to do, yeah. So what this pair usually tend to do is that when they are moving to in between this consolidation, you can see that the market came to these levels and it came to this particular point of support. So the market are moving in between this particular point of resistance and also this particular point of support that is here. So you can see that when it came to this particular point of support, this pair usually have got a lot of pullback. So you can see that the pullback came to these particular levels that are here before moving into a kind of a correction to this particular point of consolidation. That's why you can see that when it came to this level, it moved to the upside, created some small consolidation before creating a W shape and move to the upside. And then we continued on with several consolidation, and then we had several breakout. Like in this area, we had a breakout to the downside, attacked this particular level, a move to the upside before a move to the downside. So what I would like to explain is this level. So you can see that there is a lot of similarities between these two levels that are here. This particular level that is at this point, and also this particular level that is at this particular point. So you can see that in both levels, when the market hit when markets came to these levels, the market moved aggressively toward the downside to this particular point of support. You can see that in this area, the market, after touching this particular level, it came down to this particular level that is here. And also you can see that also what happened in this particular levels, when the market came to this particular level, the market were very aggressive, came up to this particular level. Now based on that, what do we expect? Now based on that, what I'm currently expecting is that the market are going to rise from these particular levels that are here. They are going to rise to they are going to rise high to these particular levels here. So this is a very strong point of resistance. So that's why I'm expecting that the market are going to rise from this particular point of support, and they are going to rise to these levels that are here. So that is how I think you should analyze the Euro NZD. Now moving into now the 4 hour time frame, you can see that I was okay. I came down with the market when the market hit at this, I think it was at this particular levels here, went down with it to these particular levels that are here. And as they were moving toward the upside, I had already placed in a buy stop order. So you can see that I'm currently moving with it toward the upside. And what am I expecting? I'm expecting that it is going to rise to this level before experiencing some consolidation in those areas. So I'm currently targeting around 300 pips out of it. So hopefully all is going to be well. So that is how I think one should analyze the Euro NZD, because it has got a lot of consolidation, and when it comes to breakout, it is usually very aggressive. So that is all that I had for today. So do have a great afternoon, and do have a great week ahead of you. It is always my prayer that may the peeps always be with you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe, like, share this content with other forex traders. And if you have not joined the champions, so you have got a link in the description space below this video. You can follow us also on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter and also on Facebook. The link are in the description space below this video. You can join also our Telegram channel. The link is also in the description space below this video. And it is always my prayer that may the pips always be with you. Thank you.